This is the Renault Austral. It's an all new car in their lineup, kind of designed to replace the late Kadjar. And it's certainly got some stiff competition, as this is one of the busiest segments out there. However, it does have a few USPs, one of which is potentially a game changer if you do a lot of city driving. On top of that, Renault tackle one huge issue, which is range anxiety. And Renault claimed that you should be able to get over 1,100 kilometers on a single, it's not quite a charge, on a single tank, but it is electrified. So let's explain how that all works. It's got a very traditional 1.2 litre petrol engine under the bonnet. It's turbocharged and it's a 3-cylinder. That doesn't sound like an awful lot. However, that combined with a 1.7 kilowatt hour battery, which powers 2 electric motors, means that you have almost 200 horsepower. And all of a sudden, that starts to make a lot of sense. And what's more is, it's pretty efficient. To put a number on the efficiency, it really depends on your driving, but you should see under 5 litres per 100 kilometers. However, the real key is that around town you can do about 80% of your driving in EV mode. And so far on this drive, as I've been talking, we haven't had the petrol engine turn on once. How is that battery charged? Well, it uses the petrol engine to charge it up, but not only that, it can also be charged up through regenerative braking, which is when the car slows down, it uses that energy to charge up the battery. And the amount of regenerative braking can be adjusted on the paddles on the steering wheel. Now, there is only one engine available in Ireland. However, where you can customize it is with trim levels. So the entry trim is called the Techno. That's about 45,000 euros. And then there's 2 higher trim levels with much more spec as you go. There is the Techno Esprit Alpine, and then there is the iconic Esprit Alpine. In terms of which one should you go for, my best advice is to go down to your local Renault dealer. You can find out where it is by clicking the link up there, and they can advise you as best as you can. However, this one here has got some nice 20-inch alloys. It's really, really stylish, and it also features my favorite thing, and that is that this car has 4-wheel steering, and that's something that's generally reserved for something like a Mercedes S-Class. However, we have it here in a Renault, and it makes life unbelievably easy to drive around town. And you can actually see it working its magic on the rear wheels when I turn the steering wheel. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it should have a smaller turning circle than a Renault Clio, and it's the size of it. As far as the cockpit goes, it's a lovely place to sit. The seats are really, really comfortable. In this spec, they're electronically adjustable. And what I love is when you change it, it then comes up on the screen saying, would you like to save this position? And that's just a nice little feature. On top of that, the steering wheel. I'm seeing a lot of BMW iX here, which is a brilliant thing. There's even a little bit of Alcantara down here on the bottom. One thing with a lot of Renaults is there's quite a lot of stock. So there's the gear lever, there's the window wipers, then there's the music, and then over here there's the indicators and some lights. But then as far as the infotainment system goes, I really like this portrait setup here, and actually it's really, really good. Your home screen just has kind of shortcuts to everything. I've left in Apple CarPlay the whole time I've had this car. And it's actually wireless, and it connects up really seamlessly. Within about 4 seconds of the car turning on, you're connected up, so it's brilliant. Then there's also a driver's display here, and then there's a heads-up display in front of you, which is nice when you're driving because it just means you don't have to look down too much. And then actually the wireless phone charger works through a cover, and it works really well. And this whole system here is really nice. You can move it forward if you want to rest to use the infotainment system, or you can move it back and hide things down there. Bit of storage in here. As a whole, really nice interior, and the panoramic sunroof just brightens the whole place up. So to drive, it's pretty good, to be fair. I think the highlight for me is the 4-wheel steering. It's just really handy. But actually the regen is really severe, and that's unusual for a standalone hybrid. Normally they have a marginal amount of regenerative braking, but here in the Austral it's pretty decent. And that is probably the reason that you're able to drive 80% in EV mode around the city. Now, the transition from the petrol engine to the 2 electric motors, it's all pretty seamless stuff moving around here, but it's all very, very seamless. You don't really notice it, and a lot of the time you're sitting listening, wondering, is the petrol engine on or is it not? And then as far as driving aids go, as you can imagine, tons. I think there's over 30 ADAS systems, which ADAS is basically driver aids. So there's everything from blind spot monitoring to adaptive cruise control, emergency braking. It's got the works, and it's really, really good. And if you've never driven a car like that, or like a new car, let's say, these might be a little bit unusual at first, but once you get used to them, 90% of them are excellent. And the ones you don't like, you can just turn off here in the infotainment system. So I was actually at the launch of this a couple weeks ago, maybe 5-6 weeks ago in Ireland. And one of the things that concerned me when I first saw it was that 3-cylinder 1.2 litre petrol engine. I said, there's no way that can be enough. But if I put my foot down, it's pretty nippy. I mean, it's by no means fast, but it's very, very quick and definitely has enough power. And actually, another thing that they mentioned at that launch was earlier in the year, or maybe it was last year, I can't remember exactly, they brought over one of these to test it on Irish roads. So that means it's well set up in terms of suspension and everything like that for the Irish roads, particularly if you do live in rural Ireland. And on the note of suspension, this one, because it's got the 4-wheel steering, has a slightly more sophisticated rear suspension, and it works really, really well. I haven't driven a version without. I'm sure it's fine. Renault know how to make suspension, but it is just worth noting that this one is a slightly more upgraded one. However, I think if you're going for an Austral, go all out, treat yourself, and get the one with the 4 suspension. I just think these higher spec ones just have a little bit more to them. The Alcantara finish on the steering wheel, it all makes a big, big difference. Now, boot space does play a key role in anyone considering buying a car like this, and it is a little bit slow to open, but this version does have an electric tailgate. And in here, there's 555 litres, which is about the middle of the pack. It's what you'd expect in an SUV of this size. There's some storage under here, which is nice and handy. No spare wheel, but you do get a puncture repair kit. And then one thing that I really like is it's very quick and easy to fold down the rear seats. You just pull this lever here and they fly down. And that just means life is easier if you're holding babies and you don't have to go around, and you know, it's just a little bit less chaotic, a little bit less hectic. Rear space in here, obviously parents, this is quite an important place for you. So to begin with, loads of knee room, good headroom, even with the panoramic sunroof, which is nice. And I'd say it's kind of standard size for this segment. However, there is a couple nice features that kind of separate it. One is there's 2 ISOFIX points back here, but there's also a 3rd in the front. So if you have 3 kids, that's going to make life a whole lot easier. And then there's just a few nice features like an armrest here with some cup holders, USB-C charging points, which means you can charge up the kids' phones or iPads, and then there's a bit of storage in there, and that's basically it. But a nice, comfortable and very practical rear. So there you have it. That is the all-new Renault Austral. The name sounds a bit more Germanic than French to me, but as a whole, I've really enjoyed the week I've spent in the car. It's very capable. I've driven on motorways, I've driven it in and out of the Dublin city centre. It's not massive for the size of it, and what I mean by that is if you're a little bit apprehensive to get into an SUV because you're worried about parking, this is really good. The camera setup is really good. You'll struggle to have a hard time with this. It's very user friendly, and of course, if you would like to search for Renaults for sale in Ireland, you can hit the link up there. But thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, would love if you could subscribe. Let us know what cars you'd like to see us review in the near future, and that's it for now.